All right, so Brady, 7 Super Bowl wins. He's been to 10 now.
Right.
Something we're never going to see again.
No.
Nobody's going to come close to that.
No, you're never going to see a quarterback go to 10 Super Bowls again. No.
And then,
Any player, you're never going to say it.
yeah.
Because if you're not a quarterback, how are you going to play that long? Kicker, maybe?
Yeah, you're right.
But,
you're right. Yeah, no, you're right.
And, which brings up, which I've seen online and the sports shows now, Brady versus Jordan in the all-time great pantheon, right? So I'm giving the edge to Brady because I think it's harder to get to a Super Bowl than it is to get to the NBA Finals. It's one game. So I mean, if you get to 10, the odds are there's better odds you're going to lose some, right? Jordan lost some finals games. He didn't lose the finals. It's best 4-7, but
He didn't lose many finals games.
some, but yeah. And then as Nathan points out, if you're as great as Jordan, you're one of 5 players in the court. Great players can swing basketball games a little more than football, right? You're a quarterback and you have the whole team. You're not even out there on defense. So, yeah, I give the edge to Brady. I think the greatest team sport athlete of all time, I think.
Right.
Or the accomplishments.
All right.
Well, I would say, first of all, I think there's 2 different things. There's 2 different questions to ask.
Okay.
Is it greatest, like you just kind of qualified at the end there? Are you looking at greatest accomplished player of all time? Like, just looking at their accomplishments, what they were able to achieve in their sport the greatest? Or do you look at who was the greatest skill-wise at their sport? Who was the best player? There's 2 different questions. Because when I just hear the greatest of all time, I don't know what does the person mean greatest.
Well, I think we mean accomplishments.
Okay. Well, then I think it's obviously Brady for the reasons you just said. I think there's so many factors that play into it. 1, I think it's a lot tougher to get to the Super Bowl, like you said. 2, everything you just said, basically. I mean, Jordan's great. Brady's great. Okay. Jordan's one of 5 guys. I mean, he has a whole lot more control over the game, Jordan. I mean, anytime he wants to, he'll just keep the ball and not pass it, and he can dominate the game.
Yeah, right.
And then when he does decide to shoot, if he's good, he'll make it, and then they'll get the points. If Brady's on one night, he's good. His receivers still have to catch it. His line still has to block for him. There's so many things that if Jordan's 1-on-1 on a guy, if he's on that night, he's gonna make the shot. Like, there's so many other factors. And then, like you said, Brady's not even on defense. It's just so hard. And then playing, it's harder. I feel like it's harder to play football any position except maybe kicker longer than it is it's hard to have longevity in football than basketball. Yeah. So the fact that Brady's played this long is extraordinary. The fact that he's gotten to 10, the more I think about it every day after the Super Bowl, the more mind-blowing it is that he's won 7 Super Bowls and he's gotten to 10. Like every time I think about it, it becomes more like it's unbelievable. I mean,
listen, but I guess I mean he's been to 1 with Tampa Bay, so really he's been to 9 with the Patriots. So,
what are you not counting the Tampa Bay one?
Yeah, that's just
no. Wait a minute. What I'm getting at is, but it wasn't only him that got to the Super Bowl. In other words, the same argument you just used about the fact that there's other guys involved, he hasn't played defense. Same thing applies with the Super Bowl. I mean, Tom Brady's a great quarterback, but those Super Bowls he got to, especially the Patriot ones, were based on the accomplishments of his teammates as well.
Well,
correct?
I think you have to look at that for any given Super Bowl. Like this year's Super Bowl, maybe you can say that. Like if you look at 1 or 2 Super Bowls, you can say, "Oh, look at that team." But when you look at Brady, I mean, come on, you're telling me that he wasn't the deciding factor. I mean, if somebody like that who's been to 10 Super Bowls and won 7, and now he's net with 2 different teams, there's something more than just his teams were good for him to be what are all those teams? What do?
All right, well,
what do 10 of the last 20 Super Bowl teams have in common? They had Brady on it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a coincidence.
But no, it's not a coincidence. But what I'm saying is like, for example, like take the first Super Bowl they lost to the Giants. Brady took the ball on the last drive and drove it all the way down the field and scored with 2 minutes left in the game. But his defense couldn't close the deal, and the Giants were.
That's why it's tougher to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I understand that, but
Jordan's on the court 24/7.
I understand that, but my point is that same thing could have happened during the regular season. I don't know the Patriots season, but there could have been times when he had driven them down, and yet his defense did close the deal to win the game.
Okay,
and that was those are games that all multiply to get to the playoffs and to get to the Super Bowl.
I get that, and that could account for 1 ring. That could account for 2 rings. That doesn't account for 7 of his rings. That's my point.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that I don't necessarily disagree, because I think what makes it a more compelling argument for Brady to be the all-time great sport team player or all-time great sport athlete, if you want, however you want to couch it, is what he did this year, given what this year was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If this had been a normal year, I think you'd say still would have been great. But the guy went to Tampa. They had no off-season activities. They had no training camp. He had to do everything virtually. No preseason games. They were 7-5 at one point in the season and reeled off, 4 straight victories to close the season, and then a 4-game run. I mean, what he did was absolutely phenomenal, and he changed the culture of that team. I mean, this is basically the same team from last year, was it not?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you had Fournette that you didn't have last year, but that was pretty much it.
Which goes to the whole fact that it's less the team and more Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he changed the culture of that team. There's no question. But I think you got to look at Michael Jordan the same way. I mean, Michael Jordan was able to get more out of the players that he had around him than they would have been able to give without him. And it's the same thing with Brady.
No, the exact same thing applies to both of those guys. There's no question about that. When Jordan retired, the Bulls didn't win the championship.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that that's not there with Jordan. I'm just saying that you can't try to say that's not there with Brady. It's there with both of them.
What I guess what I'm saying is, and again, I'm not upset with the fact that Brady's.
So you think it's Jordan though?
I think it's Jordan, but I'm not. But I would be willing to go with Brady. But I mean, Jordan went to 6 NBA Finals, won them all, was 6-time MVP of the final. Wait a minute,
5 guys.
Brady won 7, so Jordan won 6, Brady won 7. Okay, Brady went to a few more. Okay, that he lost. Well, my point is, tell me why Jordan's not. I mean, you just told me why Brady is.
Okay. Here's another way to look at it. Look at a lot of the great players. And then, I mean, LeBron. I know LeBron's not as good. Listen, LeBron is not as good as Jordan.
No,
but he's a great example of any great NBA player can take any team to the championship. I mean, it's not that hard.
That's a good point. I mean, Kobe's got 5 titles.
Kobe's got 5.
Okay, he went to 3 or 4 more they didn't win. Now, granted, 6-0 for Jordan is impressive, but Nathan's point is, a lot of great NBA players, it's easier to get to the finals.
Look,
like, by the time LeBron's probably got 5 or 6 years left, he may win another one.
Yeah.
So, but quarterback's 7, and then the next closest is 4.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just distancing himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and how many have done 4? 2 guys?
Bradshaw and Montana.
Between like Magic, Larry Bird, Bill Russell, certainly, Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, all of these guys have done similar things to Jordan. They've all got to the championships and won many, many championships.
Yeah.
Because when you're a great talent on the court, it's easier to take over the game. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's done over and over again every decade.
Jordan and Brady are very similar in what they do, like we said, but I think you give the edge to Brady because the NFL is a harder league to do it.
It's a harder league to do it. Because, like Joseph just said, he's distanced himself so much. Not only the 7 wins, but he's gotten to 10. There's guys that won 4, right? Was it Bradshaw, Montana? How many have they got to? Montana just got to 4.
Yeah, Bradshaw got to 4.
4. Brady got to 10.
Yeah.
That's amazing. In the Super Bowl, I mean, think about just what's the word? I forget the word now, but how many teams every year in the NBA starts really have a chance to win the NBA Finals? 2,
5 or 6,
5 or 6. In the NFL, it's really kind of. I mean, it's
half the league has a chance.
Half the league. I feel like it's tougher competition. I don't care what everybody says.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I mean,
how do you account for that? That so many people have basically done what Jordan has. I'm not. Again, this is not to belittle Jordan. We're just talking about the greatest of all time in any sport. That's why it's comparing Brady to Jordan. If we were just talking about basketball, there's no question. But I mean, how do you account for the fact that LeBron, any of these great players, seem to basically replicate what Jordan does?
I guess probably I'll wrap up my comments by saying that I don't disagree with you at all. I'm willing to admit that Brady is, but I think it's difficult to make. Whoever started that discussion, it's unfair because I think it's difficult to take that step. What you just said was great. If you're talking basketball, there's no question. If you're talking football, there's no question. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk baseball, you want to talk golf, doesn't matter. But it's hard to all of a sudden say who comes out of all those sports as the greatest because there's so many things you could talk about. I don't disagree that it's harder to get to the Super Bowl than it is to other. But you got to admit, it's also hard to play 3 postseason series of potentially 7 games to get to the NBA Finals. I mean, that can be a brutal path as well.
That can be tough.
Granted, you don't have to win
easier.
just one.
Right, it's easier.
I understand that. Easier. Okay, but I don't disagree because I'm a football guy. But what I'm saying is you can make all sorts of arguments that can point you one way or the other. I don't think it's fair to have to say, do we have one guy that is the all-time?
I would agree with that. But even if you wanted to skirt all those the little minutia of the detail, which there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and just look at the numbers, purely the numbers, it's still Brady. 10-7, 6-6. It's still Brady.
Yeah, that's my closing argument is just the number, like Nathan said.
If you want, I don't think you can just look at the numbers. But if you don't, like you say, it gets into some murky water. But if you do it, either way you look at it.
He's doing stuff that nobody's ever done, we'll never see again. Whereas,
how many did Bill Russell win?
I don't know, but
11.
LeBron's already been to like 8 finals or whatever. 7, I don't know, maybe.
Bill Russell won 11
It
championships.
was with the Celtics, yeah.
Okay, so I guess you'd have to say he's better than Brady,
Whatever.
right?
No,
Just look at the numbers.
you can't. See, that's the point. I mean,
Well,
you can't.
That's what I'm saying. If you just look at numbers, though,
I guess for me,
how did Jordan even come up in it then? If instead of Bill Russell, if you're looking at numbers,
before this season, Brady had won 6 and gotten to 9. And while I considered that very impressive, the thing that really kicked it in the over for me was this year, and not. I mean, because
He won the Belichick Brady argument.
that's
Yeah,
right. He
that's-
won that
that's-
hands down, right? But my point is just the fact that it's really what's more mind blowing is not so much that he won 7 and got to 10. Think how mind blowing it is what he did this year. I mean, this was a Buccaneer team that hadn't won a playoff game since 2002 and hadn't been to the playoffs since 2008 or 7. Okay, and he took this team and they won a Super Bowl. I mean, that's what's even more amazing.
that's what, and I agree with it. That's what's making me, like you said, it shouldn't have been that much less amazing getting to 9 and winning 6 and getting to 10. It's similar.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. What's really made me think about it more is what he did this year.
No
But
question.
And he's 43.
It is,
And he's 43,
He's
yeah.
43. That's true.
Which
But-
I don't. That's overplayed, okay? Because quarterback's a different position. The guy never gets hit, okay?
Okay, but how come nobody else is playing to the 43?
Well, Favre played to what, 40?
41?
All right. I mean, I'm sure he could have played another
Okay,
year. He had some
He
injuries.
seemed like he was on this last
Right,
leg.
right.
41.
Well, okay.
He was getting hit a lot
I'm saying
more.
you can point to
You can.
well, that's one guy 10 years ago, but everybody else
There's
is
not a lot
just
of people, yeah.
falling off the wayside. I guess Drew Brees is 41, but he's probably going to retire.
Right.
Brady's coming back next year.
Yeah,
He may even come back after that.
Not only is Brees 41, but look at him this season.
him throw the ball,
He
yeah.
was just shoving himself. I mean, I agree with that. Now, the whole COVID stuff about it is tough with his first year with the new team, no meetings. I agree with that. That doesn't really make it any... I mean, I think it's great, that aside. You know what I mean? Like what he did with it this year with this team. That makes it a little better, but every team couldn't have meetings and stuff. It just hurt him more because it was his new team.
Right. Well, I think that's
But
a fact, yeah.
I don't think it was a huge difference with that. But